Dear President Trump, our children, America's students, are in harm's way every day when they go into schools across America. All schools, public schools, private schools, charter schools, and now homeschools as well. As parents, we don't get the right to educate our children the way that we deem appropriate from the state or the federal government. That is an inalienable right that we as parents have been given by God. And by buying into the idea that government-regulated school choice is a civil right and it is the solution to fix education in America means that parents are handing our rights as parents to the government to educate our children. And is not that unalienable right given by God to every parent, even parents who are economically disadvantaged? There's a great dad and activist in the Stop Common Core movement, Michael Bohr, and he wrote one time, parents who are the first and forever educators of their children are the only people who have the right to determine the best interests of their child. Everyone else has an agenda that puts their best interest over those of the child, and they have done so by taking control of the government. Mr. President, did you know that in 1971, the federal interagency daycare regulations became law? On July 18, 1971, key federal legislation underlying and controlling any subsequent education legislation was adopted. Here's an excerpt from that law. Any agency, public or private, which receives federal funds directly or indirectly through a grant or contract or by way of a voucher plan must meet all program requirements that are set down for public schools. Acceptance of federal funds in an agreement to abide by the requirements. This unconstitutional master control system, the interagency daycare standards, hinge upon the federal government's own definition of daycare. Daycare is defined as the care of a child on a regular basis by someone other than that child's parent for any part of the 24-hour day. What this says is that all education facilities, whether public or private, that receive federal funding either directly or indirectly are obliged to, shall, must, will comply with all laws, rules, regulations, standards, techniques, licensing, and certificate requirements, ideology, philosophy, administration policies, and anything else covered that are set down as standards for public schools. If one school in the entire system receives federal funds, all other schools in that system must comply. Of course, all public school systems are grouped into school districts, and all public school districts are controlled by state agencies. So, if one school in the state receives federal money, the entire state must abide by the interagency standards. Acceptance of federal funds is an agreement to abide by the requirements. President Trump, a federal unconstitutional system has been locked in place through the passage of federal and state legislation designed like a set of gears, rigged, if you will, to sort our children into positions within the workforce based on the Soviet model. Mr. President, the Common Core aligned college and career readiness standards have been codified into federal law with the passage of the Every Student Succeeds Act, and our data standards align to the education arm of the United Nations, UNESCO's Global Data Standards. Unlike you, Mr. President, who condemned the Common Core national standards when concerns were raised by parents across America, Secretary Betsy DeVos was not only funding their implementation along with Republican candidates who would follow through in getting them in place. Betsy DeVos, through her Michigan lobbying arm, Great Lakes Education Project, the GLEP, was threatening legal action against the Stop Common Core Michigan parents who were sounding the alarm. Betsy DeVos founded the GLEP. One of the stated priorities of the GLEP is implementing and maintaining Common Core high standards reform. The GLEP document, Conservative Case for Common Core, clearly articulates their support for the Common Core national standards. Betsy DeVos has been working hand in hand with Jeb Bush, who was working hand in hand with former President Obama to push the Connect Ed digital ed tech agenda into all of America's school choices. In a historic speech in Cairo, Egypt, in June 2009, former President Obama expressed his desire to create a new online network so a young person in Kansas can communicate instantly with a young person in Cairo. Jeb Bush is and has been a constant figure, along with Bill Gates, in the education reform movement in America. Jeb Bush has direct ties to the Aspen Institute, a think tank that is far from right and far from considered conservative. Jeb Bush was the co-chair of an Aspen Institute report called Learner in a Networked World. In this report, they lay out their plan. They want access to every child in America. That is what Jeb Bush and Betsy DeVos's school choice is all about, whether it's vouchers, tax credits, government-regulated school choice. Is their access to control our children, to transform the way they learn and behave. This has nothing to do with parental rights or actual choice in education. From the report, Learner in a Networked World, we can create an education system where instead of time being the constant with learning, the variable, the constant is mastery of content, and the variable is time. If the opportunity for personalized learning were made available to all students, and we believe that it can be, we could realize the potential for improving academic performance for all students, substantially reducing the disparities that have long been a troubling aspect of the American educational system. This is the education system every student can and should have. Mr. President, as American parents, we do not want our children to be forced into a system to be learners in a networked world. To achieve their goals through the passage of federal and state legislation, the preschool through the workforce system, known as the P20W, has been locked in place. This system controls all education choices. This P20W system is designed to integrate digital technology and personalized competency-based training for the workforce and is now mandated on all schools, traditional, public, charter, and private schools if they take even a penny of state or federal funding and through accreditation. The P20W system is a system designed not actually to educate students using teachers who can teach with or without a computer, writing, math, science, and history. The P20W is a system designed to train students. Teachers are merely facilitators for computer software programs that are unethically collecting personal data on students to benchmark and adapt instruction and assessments to modify the behaviors of students. This is what Obama and Jeb Bush, and now as Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos's next generation of assessments and accountability is all about. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, a world policy organization, was a key player in designing the next generation of assessments and accountability. The OECD runs an assessment system to support UNESCO's development goals. The OECD's assessment director, André Schleicher, a German, worked with the Obama administration to reshape the U.S. K-12 online assessment system. The OECD reshaped assessments so that they run in the background of online curriculum. The OECD assessments are assessing behaviors more than academics, and one only has to read the quotes from the OECD document Global Competency Framework for an Inclusive and Sustainable World to understand what the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors are that they want these computer systems to teach. Here's a quote. The skills, attitudes, and values that shape human behavior should be rethought to counter the discriminatory behaviors picked up at school and in the family. All young people should be able to challenge cultural and gender stereotypes to reflect on the causes and solutions of racial, religious, and hate violence, and to help create tolerant, integrated societies. Mr. President, Professor B.F. Skinner, the U.S. father of operant conditioning, referred to the computer as his box. It has been said that the perfect Skinner box is a computer because there's nothing to get between the student and their training. The P20W system is designed to unconstitutionally sort, track, monitor, and modify students, all in the name of personalized learning for the workforce. Texas activist Joanne Fleming once wrote, "Workforce training is not about vocational training. Rather, it is a vehicle for a new governance structure that opposes free enterprise and representative government in favor of a centrally planned and managed economy. The government, in alliance with big business, herds unsuspecting parents and students into early workforce paths in order to crank out ready-made widget producers or coders for big business. Rhetorical flourishes aside, this is a freedom-crushing, individual liberty-stealing plan. Talk about removing parental rights and true choice in education. Mr. President, the solution to fixing education in America lies in going back to America's foundation. The laws putting the P20W system in place are completely unconstitutional and are unethical and an immoral violation of privacy. During the presidential campaign as President Trump, you were very clear at a town hall meeting in New Hampshire when Anne Marie Banfield explained that Common Core is more than just a set of standards. It is the data mining of personal data of students within this total redesign of public education under Obama. Obama gutted the Family Education Rights and Privacy Law. So now parents do not even know when students' information is leaving the school, and they no longer have consent. To which you, Mr. President, said, "Isn't it ridiculous? You can have local education with local people, your local schools, and you don't have a problem with some bureaucrat in Washington that just wants to make money." You were right on target, President Trump. Anne Marie went on to ask, "My question is about the data mining. What would you do to protect privacy of students now that Obama has pretty much opened that up?" Again, President Trump, at the time you correctly responded, "I will close all loopholes. You have to have privacy," you said. "You have to have privacy. So I will close all loopholes. But most importantly, I would get everything out of Washington, because that's where all of this is emanating from." President Trump, you were exactly right. As American parents, we highly recommend that you refocus your efforts on a message with regard to education, advocating laws be repealed that are not constitutional and are a violation of the Bill of Rights, such as the Every Student Succeeds Act that was passed in 2015, and the latest, just signed into law January 14th, the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking, which, when clearly understood, will have an immediate and chilling effect on the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment. That's 7 out of the 10 Bill of Rights. FIPA makes legal the interoperability of a wide array of federal and state agencies, in addition to third-party databases nationwide, in a manner that would create a de facto national database on American citizens, a surveillance system. It is time that we start protecting babies in the womb and our children in the classroom, and standing up for their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is time for Americans to step back and start asking ourselves some questions. When we send our children into schools across America, all schools, public, private, and charter, are they getting what they need academically so that they have an equal opportunity at success in life? If our children are badged and credentialed by 17 or 18 in this P20W system, but have attitudes, values, beliefs, behaviors, and a worldview that we oppose, and we know that it is because the computer programs used to train them have trained them to question and even oppose the traditional foundational beliefs of our family, our country, and our religious beliefs. Is that really a solid academic education that will serve our children and their future well? Is having our children exposed and immersed in other languages and cultures so they can be trained as global citizens more important than passing on America's history of liberty and freedom of the individual? Now that our children's education has shifted to a learn-to-earn workforce model where they can get a paying job but no longer respect, much less believe They are worthy of a free, prosperous country, a strong marriage, and that by the grace of God, anything is possible. Have we done our best to give our children a strong foundation for a happy, joy-filled life? Mr. President, as American parents, we call on you to stop the deception and work with us, the parents, to make America great again. Help us to push back against those who seek to control our nation by controlling our children. Technology can be a powerful tool when used for good, but when used as a weapon to control our children, we must stand up and say no. We are moms and dads from both sides of the political aisle who want freedom and liberty for our children. May God bless you, President Trump, by giving you wisdom and discernment, and may God bless America. And thank you all so much for taking the time to be with us. I encourage you now to go on Twitter and use the hashtag #NotMyChild. We don't want our children in this P20W system, and start tweeting this message to President Trump.